All right, let's talk about the 3 types of baits that work really well right now in August that anybody can throw. Let's start off with some soft plastic baits. The number 1 bait that I like to throw during August, as far as plastic baits goes, has to be the straight tail worm, like the finesse worm. The 4.5 inch to 7 inch, 6 inch finesse worm. Man, they are dynamite right now. And you can take the smaller ones, you can put them on a drop shot or on a split shot rig, and you can toss them anywhere. Okay, now drop shot, I know a lot of people, you think drop shot's only for deep water, and it does work really well for deep water. And in August, there's a lot of fish that are deep, so you can fish those ridges, those humps, those channel creeks, points, rock piles, etc. And it works really, really well. And you know, the bass will stack up on that, feeding on bait fish, and you drop that 4.5 inch straight tail worm, finesse worm on a drop shot rig, and work it methodically through those areas, and you can catch a lot of fish. But don't forget the shallows. You can also fish it shallow. You can fish it along docks and dock pilings. You can fish it, you know, laydowns and stumps, rocks, you know, boulders. You can on the outside weed lines. There's so many areas. You just visible cover and structure. You don't have to be deep to effectively fish a drop shot. So keep that in mind. And the 6 inch one, you can put that also on a drop shot, works really well, or on a finesse style, like a split shot rig, works really, really well. Bear in mind, you can fish a Texas rig too, like an 1/8 ounce bullet sinker, and you can throw that into heavier cover and flip and pitch and throw that into weeds and grass and bushes and flooded timber, and it works really well. Just keep that in mind. That's a presentation that a lot of bass anglers don't use and a lot of bass don't see, and so it can be very, very productive. So keep that in mind. Another bait to use, though, another soft plastic bait in that category is a ribbon tail worm. You know, the 7 inch ribbon tail worm is like an old standby, been around for decades, and it works really well. And you know, the reason is pretty simple. It's just a straightforward, got some action to it, got a little bit of bait fish action to it. Just the profile of the bass, just, I don't know what it is, but man, they just hammer it year in and year out for decades. It started back in the 70s, and I still throw them today. And August, I don't know what it is, but it fires up, and they really like hitting them during August. Just put it on a Texas rig, you know, a 1/4 ounce bullet sinker, Texas rig it, and now you can throw it in any kind of visible cover, anything. So you get your docks, your weeds, lily pads, hydrilla, milfoil especially. Look for those cuts. You know, don't just, you can find a big expansive area of milfoil, for example. And the areas that seem to work really well during August are the ones that are closer to deeper water. So not in the back ends of shallow pockets, but they're closer to deeper water. And then look for irregularities in that weed field, right? Cuts, points. Look for areas where it thins out that might signify underneath as a change of bottom composition, or maybe holes or pockets where a boulder or a stump or log might be. Those are hot spots. Those are areas where I'd be throwing this Texas rig ribbon tail worm. When you throw it in lily pads and get it to fall down underneath the lily pads, jig it a little bit. Once it hits the bottom, jig it, jig it, jig it. And sometimes a bass nearby will see it plop through, and they might not want to hit it on the fall, but if it's just sitting there wiggling on the bottom, that'll get their attention. They'll come over and they'll pick it up off the bottom. So there's a variety of ways you can fish this ribbon tail worm and catch bass all August long. So keep that in mind. The other soft plastic that you need to have handy is the Senko-style bait. It's the Yum Dinger or the Ocho from Strike King. There's a variety of baits out there. And the 2 most productive ways to fish it is weightless Texas rig and weightless wacky rig. A Texas rig works really well when you're throwing it in and around cover and weeds, so you don't get snags, or when you're throwing around, say, flooded bushes or some stick-ups and you don't want to get hung up. Also, skipping it under docks works really well for that, so you don't get hung up on any of the cross members or anything under the docks. And you just let it do its thing. Throw it and let it fall on slack line, and it falls, you know, horizontally like this, and just it just kind of wiggles as it falls. And I don't know what it is, man. It came out in the late 90s, and the fish have not got tired of it. It's a bass catching machine. So in August, a lot of fish are up shallow, they're hungry, they're feeding on bait fish, and it's a real good time to use it. And weightless on a wacky rig works very well too. Not as well in the weedy areas because you can get hung up. You might want to use a wacky style hook that's got the weed guard on it. It might help you a little bit, not get hung up so much. But it works on the outside weed lines, or if you're fishing open rocky areas or stomp fields, things like that. Again, closer to deeper water is what you're targeting. The wacky rig is probably the most popular way to fish this bait, and for good reason. It just catches a lot of fish. So be sure to have one rigged ready to go this August. Now the next type of bait you got to have handy are topwater baits. Specifically, the head and zero spook, or the cigar shaped baits like the sexy dog from Strike King, or the Sammy. These baits work for a reason. They've been around for, again, decades. It's really easy to use them. To walk the dog only takes a little bit of practice. Throw it out there, let it sit, get a little bit of slack line. You want to connect it with either a loop knot or a snap, not a snap swivel, but a snap. Using monofilament line is actually the best way to do it because monofilament floats, but you don't have to have it. It's not a requirement, but I would suggest using monofilament line, like 15 pound. Throw it out there, let it sit, and then you just give it little twitches, little yanks with the rod, and let it pause between just a little bit, and you reel up the slack. And when you pop it, lift the rod up and throw that slack in the line, and that allows it to zigzag back and forth. You get a cadence, pop, 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 while you're reeling it, pop, 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 and you'll see, it'll start to zigzag back and forth. And while you're practicing that and getting it down pat, suddenly a bass will come out of nowhere and blast it. It scares the snot out of you. But that's what's so much fun about it. The explosive strikes make it so much fun. And in August, it's really a great time to be throwing these kind of baits. You can throw them up shallow along docks or overhanging trees, anywhere there's shadow and shades. That's the thing that bass will get up under, even when it's nice and hot and sunny outside, they'll get up under there, and you just run it along that, or along a weed edge, like a lily pad field where the bass will be up underneath that, or maybe matted grass and the bass will be up under that canopy, and you run it alongside the edge of that, and they'll come up out of that and blast it. Yeah, they work really good in the morning and the evening too. I mean, that's like the best time to throw them, like right break of dawn and as you get into dusk. But don't be afraid to cast it all throughout the daytime, just along those areas I just told you about. The same thing with buzzbaits. Buzzbaits work really well in the summer, in the late summer. I like throwing them again, same places and time and areas that you did the Zara Spook. It's just a different sound, a little bit more gurgling action to it, a little more aggressive. So it's especially good if you can throw it over the tops of a weed bed where the weeds haven't quite broke the surface. You can go across that and call them up out of the weed beds. Buzzbaits to me are just really, really fantastic. The thing about them is try to fish it as slow as you can while keeping the blades churning. That tends to get more bites, so keep that in mind. And then the third category of baits is crankbait. Yeah, we're getting into crankbait season now, and this is really, crankbaits work year round, but when you get into August and into the fall, man, that is when it really takes off. The key with them is that you want the crankbait to dive a little bit deeper than the area you're fishing. So if you're fishing 10 feet of water, you want a crankbait that runs, say, about 12 foot. And the idea here is that you want it to bounce off the bottom every once in a while. You need it to hit an object, a rock or a stump or something on the bottom, and deflect off of it. That change of direction and that erratic action, that's what triggers a strike. Yeah, you can cast out and reel it in at a steady pace, and you can catch fish doing that way. But if you're like fishing riprap or something, you want it every once in a while to hit that rock and deflect off of it. And a lot of times a bass that's following it and not sure whether it's going to hit it or not, that sudden change of direction, bam, it triggers a strike. And it's easy to find baits that'll go the depth you want it to, because not only is the depth on the label, but it's also sometimes they name the baits accordingly to the depth that they dive in. So Berkeley does this, and the DT series from Rapala does this, so does Strike King. They all have like series, series 5, series 10, series 6, series 20, whatever. That number at the end of it, that's how deep the bait goes. And they can go as deep as 20 foot, some of them go deeper than that. So you can fish shallow to deep, looking for structure and area that the bass are hanging on. So points are a really good place to fish these, especially if you got some scattered boulders or stumps that you can ricochet the bait off of. That's an excellent area to go fish. Humps, ridges, rock piles. If you can find a hump that's got some grass sitting on top of it and you get the bait down to just tick the top of that grass and then rip the bait right out of it, that can trigger a strike as well. So just look for those areas where the bass can be holding on and then find that appropriate crankbait that dives the depth you want it to and go to town. As far as colors are concerned, it's pretty straightforward. Your shad and your bluegill color is going to be it, really. It may be perch. If you don't have shad in your lake, but you got perch in it, those are the three primary colors that I'd be fishing right now, is because it's real bait fish. Bait, not, the crawdad, I wouldn't be bringing out the crawdads right now. I'd be just straight up bait fish colors, and you don't need a ton of them. Just the straight up shad, bluegill, and perch imitation, and that's all you need. So with those three categories of baits, you can go out there and knock them dead this August, man. Have yourself a blast. Hope that helps. For more tips and tricks like this, visit bassresource.com.